nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming, everyone. First item of business is to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda with the following amendment. Additional certified and classified personnel actions, item E3.
Motion by Jean, second by Tom. Any discussion? All those in favor, signal by raising your hand. Motion carries. Okay, no public comments. Any correspondence that we need to discuss at this time? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda first.
Okay, I move we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion by Jean, second by Mark. Any discussion?
Madam President, due to a conflict of interest, I need to recuse myself.
Okay, let the record show that Laura has removed herself from the meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor, signal by raising your hand. Motion carries. Now we're up to curriculum report. Dr. Dennis?
Good evening. Tonight I'd like to share with you an update on Board Goal 3.1, which is the goal related to professional learning communities. Just to jog your memory. The goal itself is here, that we will utilize PLCs, as they're commonly known, systematically to support teacher development and systemic utilization of data to drive instruction. So that was the goal that we have been working toward. A little bit of history. They were developed in the summer of 2013 and approved at the beginning of the 2013-14 school year. Last spring, at the end of the first year, we reported to you that we had not made progress in this area. And so I've actually put the wording that was on that document for you. The key words there in the no progress statement are that they're applied inconsistently. That is, we do have PLCs throughout the district. Every school has PLCs. And they vary in their approach. And so it's not that we don't have good PLCs in place. We have some excellent PLCs happening. What we didn't have at the time we reported to you was consistent application of the concept of a PLC throughout the district. And so our goal has been to become more consistent and to really target this area. This was the only one of the instruction goals that we reported not making progress on. So this has become a major focus for us this year. Just for your sort of a baseline here, a definition. What is a PLC? A PLC is a process, an ongoing process in which educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students they serve. So it's more than a meeting. It's more than a group of teachers. It is a process that they go through in order to improve student results. If you think about the MTSS process, we refer to that a lot. PLCs would fit as the collaborative teams, sort of in that self-correcting feedback chart. I wanted to make a distinction between a group and a team. And I'm going to show you a short video. It's about 3.5 minutes long, and it features Rick DeFore, who is the guru of PLCs. He's really one of the primary leaders in the country and experts on professional learning communities, talking about the difference between a group and a team. And what we're aiming for is a team.
There is a difference between a group and a team. We ask people to define team, and inevitably they say, well, a team is a group of people who work together to achieve a common goal. And if that were true, then 40,000 marathon runners would be a team. They're people who are working together in close proximity. They're all pursuing the same goal. I want to finish this race. And we could say that they're a team. But I don't think anybody would argue that a group of marathon runners are a team. Something is missing. Here are the elements, the 3 elements that you must have if you're really going to be a team as opposed to a group. You must be working interdependently. We must create interdependent relationships. I can run my marathon and I can achieve my goal regardless of what happens to anybody else in the race. But if I were a member of a team, I would have to rely on other people in order to achieve the goal. And they would need to rely on me. So we would have an interdependent relationship. We would have a goal. You can't be a team without a goal. And it would be a goal for which we are mutually accountable. That would make us a team. And unfortunately, in schools all across America, we have settled for working in groups as opposed to truly creating collaborative teams. Now here's an analogy that I think makes the point. Here are 2 of the greatest athletes ever to play in their respective sports, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan, clearly 2 of the best who ever played their sports. And when they turned professional, ironically, both of them announced when they turned professional that they shared the same goal. And the goal was, I'm turning pro because I want to win championships. That's how I'm going to define myself. I want to win championships. Now, when Tiger Woods steps onto a golf course to compete in a tournament, he's never working in isolation. He's always part of a group, a collegial, congenial group. That foursome on the golf course, those other golfers that are out there, they can get along just great. But he can accomplish his goal of winning the championship regardless of what happens to any other golfer on that golf course. He can do it all by himself. Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player ever to play in the NBA. And in 1988, he did something that's never been done before or since. Not only was he the most valuable player of the year, not only was he the leading scorer of the year, the best offensive player of the year, he was also named as the best defensive player of the year. So that one man was the strongest force on both offense and defense in the entire NBA, and yet he did not accomplish his goal. Nor did he accomplish his goal for any of the first 6 years that he was in the league. No, why not? He was just as skilled and gifted in basketball as Tiger Woods was in golf. Why wasn't he able to accomplish his goals? Because Michael Jordan was a member of a team. Tiger Woods is a member of a group. There is an enormous distinction. Jordan had to rely on other people to accomplish his goal, and until that team could gel, they couldn't accomplish his goal, no matter how brilliant he was. Now, you may be the Michael Jordan of teaching. I doubt it, but you may be. My point is, no matter how brilliant you are as an individual, that does not mean you have a good team or even a good school. It's going to require a collective effort. So here.
And so it's about the collective effort. Our goals, the goals of PLCs, really are about the purpose of school, which is to ensure that all students learn at high levels. To achieve that goal will take a collaborative effort. It's not something that can be done by professionals operating independently of each other. It's got to be coordinated in a collaborative fashion, which is really the second statement. Helping all students requires collaborative and collective effort. To assess our effectiveness in helping students learn, we need to look at our results. We are data-driven, and to learn from those results and use the results to move forward, to make changes, to improve what we're doing, not only for students who struggle, but also for those who are doing well and need enrichment. So it works on both ends. And that's where PLCs fit in. Several different types of discussions happen in a professional learning community. Data is obviously a big part of it, being data-driven. And that could include things like student achievement data. Earlier today we had data all over this wall back here that schools had looked at in order to try to refine their approach with kids. A climate survey would be another example to look at what's happening in the building and make adjustments to improve the climate. Another type of discussion that PLCs have is around professional development. Mrs. Roderick and I were in a PLC this afternoon, actually, in which the coach was leading a group of teachers through a strategy. It was a direct instruction of strategy to work with kids. And it was very effective and very appropriate in this setting. A third type of discussion would be a problem solving. Example of that might be you were planning a unit of study and the copies, you're ready to begin and the copies have come back and you don't have what you need to begin. So problem solving around how you might go about moving forward with your instruction in that circumstance would be an appropriate type of discussion. Here's our plan for this year. And we're already well underway in implementing this. First part of that is a book study that we're doing as an administrative team. It began, it says August, it actually was late July at the administrative retreat. And we are studying Learning by Doing, which is a book by Rick DeFore, who you just heard from. That is continuing throughout. I think it'll take a good part of this year. It's a long book, it's a thoughtful book, and one that we're going to spend some time on. So it started at administrative retreat. We're continuing through SAC meetings, and we're having principals help facilitate that meeting, so we have lots of good engagement and involvement. Another thing that we're doing, and this was actually part of the report that we gave you in the spring, is modeling a template, in other words, a structure that we're using to communicate with the group. So we're doing that through the Superintendent's Advisory Council. Several other buildings are using the same format to test it out and see how that works. The third thing that we're doing is visiting every school, in fact every PLC. Dr. Atha, Mrs. Roderick, and myself. We have hit over half of the schools now, and will continue for a while. And our purpose is to gather information about what's actually happening out there so that can inform our recommendations about how to make PLCs more effective throughout the district. We're going to be working on building a rubric to help guide that implementation in the future so that we can be more together in our approach.
I have a real quick question.
Yes, sir.
When you guys say you're visiting every PLC, so is a PLC done in each school with all the teachers and principal, or is that
It's
reading
typically
group, a math group? Or?
they can be done different ways. It's typically a grade level team. At the high school, it may be an academy or part of an academy that has a group of kids in common. But it wouldn't be the whole staff, except in a school like Plymouth or Jenny Barker. Yes, sir.
How do I become, as a teacher, a part of a PLC? How do you declare something a PLC? You just mentioned that typically, and presumably there is some leadership there that says, let's form a PLC.
Every teacher is a member of a PLC in this district. How they are structured varies somewhat from building to building. So at some buildings, it is a grade level team. In others, it's cross-curricular. At the upper grade levels, it tends to be either a cross-curricular team, as in the middle school, or a subject-specific team so that they're communicating about science together or something like that. But every teacher is part of a group that is set up by the principal in that building.
Is there potential for a teacher to be on more than one?
Potential, yes.
All right.
And then follow up there too, I can think of some exceptional PLCs that you have out there in 457.
Yes.
And so presumably we not only have the curriculum, but also the self-examination of what's working and what.
That's very much part of what a PLC does.
I mean, as far as encouraging the other PLCs or.
Exactly right.
just want to be sure that you have in the formula a way to self-evaluate as opposed to rely heavily on Dr. or this gentleman's
Mhm.
book. What's working well in 457 and
Right. Absolutely, and that's why, I don't know if it's on the slide, that's why we talked about a rubric.
At the end of your presentation as
Right.
well.
But that's why we're talking about a rubric, so that we can do our own evaluation of our own systems. Implications moving forward. What we would like to do, and I mean, actually that's a great lead into this, because what we'd like to do is determine what are the things that every PLC in this district needs to have in common. And what are the things that can be different because of the local needs of a particular building or the culture of a particular building. There are going to be some things that we say as a district, this has to be in place. And beyond that, buildings will have some room to craft it and make it their own. And there's where the rubric is. I knew it was in here somewhere. There is a critical need, though, throughout this process for collaboration, because we don't work in isolation. We don't reach every kid with individuals. We do that with a team. And there are lots of implications for that. One of those implications is going to be for the calendar moving forward. Now, or maybe I should say the calendar will have implications for how PLCs are implemented, because depending on whether or not we have a traditional calendar or one of the alternative calendars, that will affect perhaps what this looks like moving forward. And with that, I will open to your questions.
Dr. Dennis, if you don't mind going back to Mark's comment, I know we have some schools that are really running with this concept, and I know that we've had a lot of educators recently attend the Model Schools Conference that came back with some great information. So maybe you just start with what are we doing right and where are we doing that, and then what are you drawing from those locations?
Well, maybe the best, there are several good examples. The one that we saw today was a great example of the professional development type of PLC. The coach laid out the strategy, talked about when it would be appropriate and in what circumstance, and then gave teachers a chance to share with each other how they use it or how they could. So there was some back and forth on that. But it was a very focused meeting, and it was designed to give teachers something they could take back to the classroom. That was very effective. We've seen a couple of meetings. Buffalo Jones stands out in my mind that we saw, where they were problem solving around Engage New York. Some strategies that had been effective, and how do we take that and apply it in the classroom? What does this look like in terms of evaluating student performance and assessments? So that was a good example of that type of meeting. Yes, sir?
I think one of the things that Dr. Dennis has pointed out, and the examples he's given on these, given examples where they've been coach-led. But we've seen examples where it's been principal-led.
Yeah.
But we've also seen more, we're starting to see some examples now where they're teacher-led.
We saw a terrific example at Bernadine Sitz of that.
And so I believe, we haven't got to see Forrest Good yet, but I think most all of their PLCs are going to be teacher-led.
And that's a change from past practice for them.
So when we say we want to see some commonalities, it doesn't necessarily mean we're looking for it being principal-led, teacher-led, coach-led. It could be a combination of all of those things, depending on what they're talking about and what they're collaborating about, because we have a lot of teachers and principals and coaches that bring a lot of skills to the table that, we should be working people to their strengths, not their weaknesses.
So they ought to be working on issues that they find important to them, that they can really sink their teeth into, and that they can use to improve their instructional program.
So a teacher-led discussion, collaborative process, because we want to make sure it's data-driven,
Mhm.
are those the specifics gone through you as through curriculum, or how is that,
In
how do we make
terms of-
sure it's data-driven?
They have data meetings as
Okay.
well as, so Bernadine Sits in particular is the one that we were talking about. They have data meetings every week, and they have these teacher-led discussions every week as well, so they're tightly connected. Normally, a coach will attend, won't necessarily lead them, but will be aware of what's going on and can contribute. Principals are sometimes there as well. So there is ongoing communication throughout that system.
I think, looking back at one of your slides, where you define PLCs, what I'm also wondering though is how much of this can be forced? Because like Bernadine says, they have 3 PLC meetings a week.
Right.
And some of the teachers, I understand, and we were getting this from some of the surveys from, I think, Charles Stone's and some of the other places, is that there are times when those meetings are worthless because they're not being utilized to the maximum benefit. I know, I love collaboration. I think it's important in almost every different area of work. We joked when I was at the county attorney's office, we would have what we called the 4 o'clock follies, where we would come in and talk about what happened at court and how can we handle this, how can we handle that. It wasn't something that was forced. It didn't happen every day, just when things were going on. And what I'm concerned about is that if we're forcing this on the teachers, that we're not going to be getting all the collaboration that we could be getting if we also allow it. I mean, I understand we have to have the time, but we also have to let some of this happen naturally. And then going back to what Mr. DeVore was saying, talking about Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, there probably wasn't a single thing that they did in their day that didn't progress them further on and towards their particular goal. And if the teachers are in a meeting, just to be in a meeting, are we going to lose buy-in from them to work on the collaboration as well? That's kind of one of
It's
the
a great
concerns
question.
I have.
One of the most important things that we need to do is work on the culture of the building, the culture of the district. Culture trumps strategy, after all, as Dr. Daggett said. And I think what we're seeing at Bernadine Sits this year is a good example of how addressing the culture affects something like a PLC. We have the data we did last spring, and I agree, in particular 2 or 3 buildings, and you named a couple, the data wasn't very good. It didn't show that they valued that time. But what I saw in that building was a change in the engagement of teachers as a result of probably several things, but one of the things that happened was that teacher empowerment. That teachers were able to lead the meeting where in the past they haven't been able to. And so they've had more of a hand in the direction that those conversations go. And so I think that the culture is a big part of how we can make that a valuable time for professional staff.
And I think we got mixed results from the high school. Some were great, others
Right.
not so good.
Right. Overall, I think most buildings it was pretty good, but yeah, high school was an example. I think Bernadine Sits was another example. And there were 2 or 3 others where it wasn't that way.
History has shown that teacher-driven change is where the action really happens because the buy-in is already there
Right.
usually. And that's why I asked, where does this start from? The top down or where? Because I think it's important that the interdependent collaborative process, if it is going to be good, useful information that a teacher wants to go to that meeting, I think it's going to be poised for success. So administrative's role is to make good guidelines on what would make your meetings productive and successful.
Support the culture,
Support the culture, good,
Right.
okay.
That's right.
Great. And the other thing is, we hear this a lot at faculty meetings, is where do we have the time to do this? And so what?
Good question. buildings have found different ways to do it. Some do it before school or after school. Some have built common planning time where they'll take, teachers get X amount of planning time during the week, and some of that is used for professional learning communities and some for personal plan. It's addressed different ways in different buildings, which is why I brought up the alternative calendar, because that is another potential way to address the time issue.
Well, and then, isn't planning time also a negotiated item?
It is.
So, do we specifically, just remind me, I know Alice, or have you been on this committee lately, but are there certain,
It's
allocation?
defined in the negotiated agreement how much has to be reserved for personal plan and how much can be used by the school for, what's it called, team plan?
Right, at the intermediate level now, it's about half and half. At the elementary level, it's a little bit higher on the personal plan time, but they get less overall total plan time at the elementary level.
But at the elementary level, to get all fourth grade team members together, it's gonna take actually probably more travel time than anything to get everybody in the same room.
Well, you have to work with your special schedule, PE, music, and art to make it,
Schedules are a
make
real
that happen.
challenge at any level, but especially at the elementary level.
So do you feel that one of the reasons why, I mean, it sounds like a leading question, but one of the reasons why this goal, we didn't make any headway on this goal last year was time, that we could allow for this, or do you think it was buy-in, or?
I think the biggest issue that we reported what we did was a lack of focus on our end of the central office in making this a high priority.
Okay,
So, there was communication about it in the survey, for example, but we didn't take the steps we needed to take to make sure that it was on the burner
okay.
the way we did last
So if
this year.
administration takes responsibility for that, and then now we're gonna put it on the front burner, are we allowing, at the teacher level and at the meeting level, are we allowing enough time for this to happen? Are we,
Time is always our enemy.
okay,
The meetings that I've sat in, including the one today, the discussion was going and easily could have gone much longer. One of the people in the group had set a timer as part of the routine. Timer went off, and they had to get back because they had kids coming into class. So the discussion was good. They could have used more time, but didn't have it to devote today.
And Gloria, I think to complicate that too much, but when you say time, depends on how you define time, because now, when we build that schedule, we essentially create the same groups of teachers in that schedule for a semester or for a year. So if 1 week you need to meet with a certain group, maybe fourth grade teachers, but the next week you want to meet with everybody that's teaching literacy in the building, you can't build a schedule that can accommodate both of those within the constraints of our normal day.
The other thing you can't do is collaborate across buildings that way.
I think that's an important point. And we can't, right now, there's nothing built in our schedules or in our calendar that allows us to collaborate across the grade levels throughout the district. Except if we have a special staff development day dedicated to that, or what we're seeing on the part of our teachers is that they are voluntarily meeting. Our kindergarten teachers are meeting.
Started with kindergarten this year, it's everybody K, at least 4 and maybe 5 and 6 now.
And they're meeting on their own time. So I think what teachers are telling us is that we need to consider that as a priority. That they want to know what the fourth grade teacher's doing at Plymouth versus what the fourth grade teacher's doing at Victor O'Neill.
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I just don't want to set up our teachers for failure. I mean, we can't ask them to do something and then not give them the time to do it, so.
I think it says a lot about the kind of people that we have in our district, that they're willing to devote the kind of time that they do. And we have 70% attendance on that voluntary time, something like that.
I set it about a PLC at Alta Brown, and it was a very good PLC. And it was at the end of the day. There was 4 teachers sitting there. but they were excited. Am I?
No, you're exactly right.
They were excited about after school meeting with their colleagues that taught kindergarten when I came.
That's great.
Off contract time, on their own, collaborating about what they were doing with kindergarten students.
I want to support that passion, and I, you know, this is 3.1's under student achievement. We as a board have, it's one of our biggest issues here. That's why we're in business, is student achievement. So, this is a huge topic, and I'm glad to hear that we've moved it up on the burner. I guess I just, as a board, we need to know what we need to do to support this push and this initiative. So, any other questions from board members? Well, you know, we've talked about time a lot today. I would, and we don't need to spend more time on this right now, but I would like in the near future to discuss calendar options and planning time as a group and get everyone else's opinions so that we can help direct either calendar committee or anyone who's interested in helping PLCs to be successful move forward and help you out. But I think you deserve to hear from all board members where they stand on that. So maybe on the November 10th meeting, we can have a discussion item to discuss how we can support PLCs.
And if any of you want to read the book that we're doing as a book study, let me know.
I
Get
was
your
on
copy.
board until you said it was this thick.
It's pretty good size.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Bennett.
Just a point of clarification, because some of the board members, Joanne called on November 10th, we were talking about possibly extending that meeting into and having a regular meeting and then doing a board retreat. After talking to Dr. Hopkins, I think what she has decided is that we will just make what she just talked about an agenda item at our November 10th meeting and talk about it however long they want to talk about that item. I think Dr. Carlin's going to come prepared to explain to you what the calendar committee talked about last year with an alternative calendar, and maybe and also share with you some of the specifics of the negotiated agreement that might relate to this that we need to all be knowledgeable of and be respectful of.
No action is my thing. I just want to hear everyone's opinion on this and kind of get a feel for where everybody's coming from so that we can give directives as a group if it's anything.
And in the meantime, if you need any information on different calendars or anything, any questions that you might have that might help you discuss this item, just let me know or let Dr. Carlin know, or Dr. Joseph.
Yes.
Well, I guess I would like more information on the previous calendars and what we're actually, I mean, I'm hearing we're thinking about doing something different with the calendar this year.
We will get information on the calendars. Dr. Carlin's going to bring that information
Okay.
with him, and we're just going to receive information at the next meeting, and if you have.
But isn't the next meeting the meeting you're talking about?
Yes.
But
November
we're
10th.
not gonna pull it, we're not gonna have a specific retreat or a separate meeting on this subject. I think it can stand alone within the, meeting timeframe of itself. And if we did need to pull more time aside for the group of us to discuss it further, then we will. Right now, I just kind of want to keep the conversation going so that, administration knows where we all stand on.
I think it might be helpful, we'll send you, so you may know, we'll send you a copy of our current calendar. And then we'll send you a copy of an alternate calendar that was considered by the teachers last year. So you can lay those two calendars down side by side one another and see what's different about them and how there's more time for collaboration built into that alternative calendar that's just not within the traditional calendar. least you can see, and then that might generate some questions.
And we still plan on having that calendar committee?
Definitely, yeah. And it'll help me, I'm the delegate or person from the board on there, going there. I'm non-voting, so it'll help me be able to have conversations with the committee as well. So we're the ultimate decider of that, so I need to let them know what we're thinking as well, so it can help guide them, and Dr. Carlin does as well. So, and we can also talk about planning time minutes and how that's different from elementary versus secondary.
But our November 10th meeting might help Dr. Carlin and your two board members who will be representing the board have some direction and say, well, collectively as a board, we talked about this and it's important that this piece is in that calendar, or that it be strongly considered. And that would help Dr. Carlin and then with that committee and leading that committee along with the two board members as well.
Dr. Carlin just mentioned right now, only one person has signed up for that committee.
Oh,
So
they
if
were.
anyone is interested,
An opportunity.
yeah, that might be you.
Tom, you see?
Good question, a good clarification.
And
Thanks, Tim.
is the November 10th meeting a retreat meeting, or we?
We're not gonna retreat.
That's
We're just gonna add this.
with that?
Yeah.
It'll
we're
just
gonna
be in the
add this.
agenda. And I thought there would be a little confusion here, so it'll just be an agenda item on the November 10th meeting.
I just didn't feel there was enough to retreat over at this time. There might be after the 10th meeting.
That's great.
November 10th. All right, moving on to new business. The item is Clarion Park Estates Housing Development and the impact on VO Elementary School. And I see Sammy's here to tell us a little bit more about this. And before we get started, I just want to remind the board members, no action is going to be required tonight. We want to hear about this project and the impact on one of our buildings, and we will take action on the November meeting.
Hey, my name is Ambrose Sammy. I'm the developer of Clarion Park Estate. Clarion Park Estate is going to entail 32 duplexes, 16 buildings, double two, so we're going to have 32 duplexes and 36 homes. The duplexes is going to be similar to what we've done on Pioneer Estate. One side will be a 3-bedroom, one side will be a 2-bedroom. And the houses, we're looking at 36 homes. They will be right at 1,400 square feet, 2-car garage, unfinished basement. It's the same what we've done on Pioneer Estate. For us, what we ran into is we came into a little hiccup on our drainage right next to the property. So I have with me Kurt. Kurt is our engineer with SMH out of Manhattan. And we're gonna look at about 0.36 acres that we're gonna need to take or use out of your property for us to be able to move the drainage around. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have Kurt kinda go through how we're moving the drainage and talk about it, then I can get back and visit a little. Kurt?
Good evening. Kind of orient you guys. North is up on the plan. Spruce Street is down to the south. Jenny Barker's off to the east. And this is the far northeast corner of the elementary school. Right now, this is currently just an open field back here. And then the existing ditch is running where this alley would be running right now. And you guys have a existing chain link fence along the top of that ditch back there. In order to get, this property to drain properly and then to address the city's needs to get Jenny Barker to continue to drain down the ditch, because that's what it currently does right now. Jenny Barker dumps into the ditch clear back here and is, supposed to run to the west. That's going to all have to be piped. We worked with the city on several different options here, and the option we kind of felt most comfortable with is a scenario where the storm drain will run from Jenny Barker, and it'll catch all of this development's stormwater drainage, you know, here at this intersection where the alleys would intersect Warrior Street here, and then from there it'll dump into what we're going to create a new ditch kind of south of where the existing one is, which would be on the school's property. And at that point, the water will come into basically a manhole out at the start of the new ditch. The manhole will be dug down 10 feet deep to sand. And the idea is, you know, the water, as it comes into this manhole, it'll be about 5 foot down from the top of the manhole where the pipe will come in. It'll, you know, start to fill that manhole. What can trickle out down through the bottom will. And as it fills, it'll fill that manhole and come out the top and start to run down the ditch. We're proposing to put a concrete bottom in about 4 foot wide because the area is extremely flat. And to get the water to drain away from the manhole, in addition to this area being able to drain to the north, we needed to have that concrete so that we can achieve that flat slope and still get water to flow to the existing ditch over to here. With the city's direction, they wanted to kind of be able to create a little more capacity in case of a huge event where there would need to be a little more storm water collection that would maybe be a little more than what the ditch was originally able to handle. And that's where we've, the ditch existing, is just 3-to-1 slope. It's about 2 to